Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions, stories, dramas, and scandals. I guess you need a sports show that can walk the walk and talk the talk.
On this show, we answer all your sporting questions. The whens, the whys, the wheres, and even the what ifs. Sports Spring is that show that will give you that new lease of life you've been looking for in sport journalism. Join me, Joseph Atewe,
And your sports Amazon, Nengi Ernest.
on this station, Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on Star Times.
Let's talk sports. Let's speak the most universal language of the world.
Arrested, affected, sound, found. What do we see? What do we say? Flowing from a spring. A fact A to Z. Check and confirm. Ever is pounding current events. Traveling down from the business gist to the globally arising happenings, to the sports news, to the bittersweet infos. Guided transmission, even diffusion, vast and fast, detailed.
Good evening and welcome to Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. Thousands of people pay their respect to former Pope Benedict XVI. Ukraine says around 400 Russian soldiers have died in missile attack on occupied Donetsk region. Authorities in Malawi suspend opening of school in 2 major cities following cholera outbreak. My name is Tunde Ido. Thousands of people have been paying their respect to former Pope Benedict XVI at his line in state in the Vatican. He died on New Year Eve at the age of 95, almost a decade after he stood down because of ill health. Pope Francis will preside over Thursday's funeral, the first time a pope will be buried by his successor. As dawn broke over the Vatican, a queue had already formed at the edge of St. Peter's Square. Benedict XVI became the first pope to resign in 600 years in 2013, citing ailing health. His body will be displayed for 3 days in an open casket at St. Peter's Basilica, with people allowed to pay their respect until 7 p.m. each day. Many of those who filed into the Basilica today made a sign of the cross or stopped to pray as they passed the former pope's body, which is flanked by 2 Swiss guards. Others took pictures on their mobile phone. Ukraine says around 400 Russian soldiers have died in a missile attack on the occupied Donetsk region. The attack hit a building in the city of Makivka, where Russian forces were thought to be stationed, though the figure has not been verified. Pro-Russian authorities acknowledged casualties, but did not confirm the figures being reported. Although access to Russian-controlled areas is restricted, a number of Russian commentators and bloggers acknowledged the attack, but suggested that numbers were lower than claimed. According to the Ukrainian military, 300 were wounded in addition to the estimated 400 who were killed. Meanwhile, in Kiev, air raid sounded yesterday night as the latest wave of strikes from Russia continued. And in Asia, Japan today said it scrambled jet fighters and dispatched aircraft and warships over the past 2 weeks to keep tabs on China's Liaoning aircraft carrier and 5 warships that conducted naval drills and flight operations in the Pacific. Japan's Ministry of Defense said it monitored the operations after the Chinese naval group, which included missile destroyers, sailed into the Western Pacific from the East China Sea on December 16th. While China has conducted similar operations in the past, including one in May, the latest large-scale military drills close to Japan's island comes after Japan announced it will double defense spending over the next 5 years. The move is in a bid to deter China from using its military to push territorial claims in the region, including against neighboring Taiwan. North Korea has sacked Park Jong-chun, the second most powerful military official after leader Kim Jong-un. State media reported that Mr. Park, vice chairman of the Central Military Commission of the ruling Workers' Party and secretary of the party's Central Committee, was replaced by Ri Yong-gil at the committee's annual meeting last week. No reason for the change was given. State television showed Park sitting in the front row of the podium with his head down during the meeting while other members raised their hands to vote on personal issues. His seat was later shown unoccupied. Turning to the Middle East, Israeli forces killed 2 Palestinians, including a man claimed by an armed group as a member during a confrontation that erupted today when troops entered a Palestinian village in the occupied West Bank. The 2 men were killed in the village of Kfar Dan near the northern city of Jenin. The Israeli military said it entered Kfar Dan to demolish the houses of 2 Palestinian gunmen who killed an Israeli soldier during a firefight in September. The military said troops came under heavy fire and fired back at the shooters. The Palestinian Health Ministry identified those killed as 21-year-old Sama Husseini and 25-year-old Fuad Abed. Husseini was said to have been shot several times in the chest. In the United Kingdom, 3 people have died after a fire broke out at a Perth hotel in Scotland. Emergency services, including 21 ambulance crews and 9 fire trucks, were called to the New County Hotel on County Palace at about 5 a.m. Hotel guests and 2 people from neighboring flats were evacuated, and police set up a cordon urging members of the public to avoid the area. 11 people were treated at the scene by the Scottish Ambulance Service. The fire was extinguished at about 6:30 a.m. and the bodies were discovered in a subsequent search. Just before midday, police began removing them from blue tents close to the hotel into a private ambulance. The Scottish Fire and Rescue Service said a dog also died in the fatal blaze.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Sharp, Area Commander for Perth, Kinross, Angus and Dundee. This was a very complex incident where tragically 3 people were pronounced dead at the scene. Our thoughts are very much with the immediate family and friends at this difficult time. Our firefighters worked extremely hard in a very complex and challenging environment to prevent the further spread of fire and damage where possible. At its height, we had 9 fire appliances in attendance with over 60 firefighters. We're currently still in attendance to make sure the scene is safe. I'd like to thank our crews and our other emergency partners and local authority for their support. Our firefighters and community action teams have and will continue to engage to ensure safety in this area, and we will continue to work closely with stakeholders and Police Scotland in any subsequent investigation.
Elsewhere, 4 people have died after a mid-air collision between 2 helicopters near SeaWorld on Australia's Gold Coast. Queensland police say initial investigation suggests the crash happened as one aircraft was taken off and the other was landed. Those who died were traveling in the same helicopter, and 3 other passengers are in critical condition. 5 of the 6 people on the other aircraft, which made an emergency landing, suffered minor injuries. Gary Worrell of the Queensland Police Service told reporters the 4 deaths and the 3 serious injuries had all occurred in the same aircraft. Dozens of inmates have escaped from a prison in northern Mexico after gunmen suspected to be members of a drug cartel opened fire on the facility. Authorities say the men arrived outside the Chihuahua State Prison in armored vehicles and began firing on the guards. 10 were killed, along with 4 prisoners, including during the audacious and brutal attack in the border city of Ciudad Juarez. Police say some 24 inmates escaped. Fighting within the prison, where inmates from differing criminal bands and drug cartels are housed in separate cell blocks, also left 13 people injured. Prison authorities said 4 of them are being treated in hospital. Outside, relatives gathered, hugging each other and crying as they waited for news. The Army and the National Guard have been called in to support local authorities in the aftermath. You are watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. We will be right back after the short break. Please stay with us.
Sports is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions, stories, dramas, and scandals. I guess you need a sports show that can walk the walk and talk the talk.
On this show, we answer all your sporting questions. The whens, the whys, the wheres, and even the what ifs. Sports Spring is that show that will give you that new lease of life you've been looking for in sport journalism. Join me, Joseph Atewe,
And your sports Amazon, Nengi Ernest.
on this station, Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on Star Times.
Let's talk sports. Let's speak the most universal language of the world.
Arrested, affected, sound, found. What do we see? What do we say? Flowing from a spring. A fact A to Z. Check and confirm. Eva is pounding current events. Traveling down from the business gist to the globally arising happenings, to the sports news, to the bittersweet infos. Guided transmission, even diffusion, vast and fast. Detailed facts are fled. Within seconds, nuggets of words that flew across borders are fired. Stories short and long, wrapped in bundles of words, broken and dissected as it is, except misheard. This is the news as it is.
Sports is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions, stories, dramas, and scandals. I guess you...
You're watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Into all the news. Authorities in Malawi have suspended the opening of primary and secondary schools in two major cities following a cholera outbreak that has so far killed 595 people. Schools in the capital, Lilongwe, and the commercial hub, Blantyre, will remain closed for at least 2 more weeks after the Christmas holiday. The cholera outbreak began in March 2022, but has become acute lately. 19 people died on New Year's Eve alone. Health authorities say that the onset of the rainy season could be making the situation worse as flood waters mixed with waste pollute water sources. A lack of proper drainage in both cities is also a factor. The outbreak has spread to nearly all of Malawi's 28 districts. Today's announcement has angered some parents who say their children were already on their way to school, which had been due to reopen tomorrow. But the health minister said the government regretted any inconvenience and that the late advice was taken solely in the interest of the safety of students. The United States has dropped Burkina Faso from its AGOA trade conference program, citing deep concerns over unconstitutional change in government in the West African country. The move was confirmed by the U.S. Trade Representative's Office. Frustration over the government's inability to curb an Islamist insurgency led to 2 military coups in Burkina Faso in 2022. Both the previous and current juntas have made efforts to beef up security, but Islamist attacks have continued. The junta's Foreign Affairs Ministry reacted to the U.S. decision today by repeating a November statement saying that the timetable for a return to democracy had not changed. Burkina Faso had committed to return to constitutional rule in 24 months in a July agreement with West African Regional Bloc, ECOWAS. The Philippines' main airport scrambled to resume full services today after a New Year power outage affected its air traffic control and disrupted 300 flights, prompting calls from business leaders and its top senator for urgent action. General Manager of the Manila International Airport Authority, Cesar Cheong, said a failure of primary and secondary power supplies caused the outage at Ninoy Aquino Airport, and it should take about 72 hours for airlines to normalize their operations. There were 361 flights delayed, cancelled, or diverted to other regional airports yesterday, affecting about 65,000 passengers, while many other flights were rerouted around Philippine airspace. Cheong said the airport was handling a maximum of 15 flights per hour today, down from the usual 20. Several of the airport's terminals were crowded with long queues of people trying to rebook flights, while other weary passengers slept on chairs or on the floor. Dubai has scrapped its 30% alcohol tax in an apparent bid to boost tourism. It will also stop charging for personal alcohol licenses, something residents who want to drink at home must have. Dubai has been relaxing laws for some time, allowing the sale of alcohol in daylight during Ramadan and approving home delivery during the pandemic. The latest move is thought to be an attempt to make the city more attractive to passengers in the face of competitions from neighbors. The two companies which distribute alcohol in Dubai, Maritime and Mercantile International, and African and Eastern, said they will reflect the cut in tax for consumers. Talking business, Managing Director, International Monetary Fund, IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, has warned that a third of the global economy will face recession this year. Georgieva spoke in an interview with American network CBS. She said economic activities in the United States, the European Union, and China are all slowing simultaneously. Georgieva further explained that the rapid spread of COVID-19 in China, especially now that the government has dropped its severe containment policy, meant that the country faces a fresh economic blow in the short term. She said the next couple of months will be tough for China due to the spread of the deadly virus. And to the world of sports, Brazilians are bidding a final farewell to football giant Pelé at a 24-hour public wake at the stadium of his longtime team, Santos. The Oceanside home of the team is receiving a huge influx of fans looking to honor the king of football who died aged 82 on Thursday after a long battle with cancer. Stadium doors opened this afternoon with a coffin bearing the remains of the only player to have won 3 World Cups displayed in the center of the field. After that, a procession will be held through the streets of Santos, a port city about 75 kilometers from the state capital, Sao Paulo. The parade will pass the house of Pelé's mother, 100-year-old Celeste Arantes, who is unaware that her world-famous son has died. The procession will end at the cemetery in Santos, where Pelé will be interred in a special mausoleum. And to tennis, Venus Williams started her 30th year on the WTA Tour with a victory over fellow American Katie Volinets at the ASB Classic in Auckland, New Zealand. The 42-year-old beats Volinets, who is half her age, 7-6, 6-2, and will play China's Li Zun in the next round. Former world number 1 Williams made her tour debut in October 1994. She entered 4 tournaments as a wild card in 2021, the only year since 1994 in which she did not win a single match. The Australian Open starts on the 16th of January.
Venus, welcome back. How good did that feel?
Oh my gosh. Hi, everyone. How are you? Yeah, this is one of my favorite places to come. I was so excited that I made it here. And I remember the last tournament that was here, Serena won. I remember watching from at home, you know, holding onto my seat. It was a great match. And it's so great to see you guys come out and then stay this late after this weather. So thank you. And I'm happy to get a win.
The Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry, has said he would like to get his father and brother back. In a trailer for the upcoming TV interview released today, he also says he wants the family and not an institution, noting that they have shown absolutely no willingness to reconcile. Speaking to Anderson Cooper in an interview airing on the 8th of January, Prince Harry said he has tried to keep his conversations with the British royal family private, but to combat stories in the tabloids, he has been forced to make his concerns public.
One of the criticisms that you've received is that, well, okay, fine, you want to move to California, you want to step back from the institutional role, why be so public? You say you tried to do this privately.
And every single time I've tried to do it privately, there have been briefings and leakings and planting of stories against me and my wife. You know, the family motto is never complain, never explain, but it's just a motto, and it doesn't really hold.
There's a lot of complaining and a lot of explaining.
Endless.
Private being done through leaks.
Through leaks. They will feed or have a conversation with the correspondent, and that correspondent will literally be spoon-fed information and write the story, and then at the bottom of it, they will say that they've reached out to Buckingham Palace for comment. But the whole story is Buckingham Palace commenting. So when we're being told for the last 6 years, we can't put a statement out to protect you, but you do it for other members of the family, there becomes a point when silence is betrayal.
Before we end Spring Global, here is a recap of our top stories. Thousands of people have been paying their respect to former Pope Benedict XVI at his lying in state in the Vatican. Ukraine says around 400 Russian soldiers have died in a missile attack on the occupied Donetsk region. Authorities in Malawi have suspended the opening of primary and secondary schools in 2 major cities following a cholera outbreak that has so far killed 595 people. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. Thank you for viewing. I am Sunday Ido. Good evening.